Dear students, in the present lecture, we are going to discuss points to be noted by the auditor at the time of vouching. It is also known as principles of vouchings or techniques of vouching. I am Professor Dr. V.K. Sawant. Let us start our business, that is discussion on vouching. Vouching is an essential component of auditing. It is the prime factor on the basis of which the auditor can do his work. While vouching, certain factors must be taken into consideration by the auditor. Voucher is a documentary evidence which is supporting to the transactions happened. So, no documents, no accountancy. Therefore, it is the duty of auditor to consider principles or techniques of vouching while doing his work. For the purpose of carry out vouching efficiently and smoothly, the auditor should note the under-mentioned points. Arranged vouchers. First point is arranged vouchers. First of all, auditor should check all the vouchers provided by the client are properly arranged. There are in the same order. All vouchers are organized in the same order as the entries are made in the books of accounts. Arranged vouchers assisting to the auditor to conduct his work smoothly. The auditor should not take into consideration scattered vouchers. Therefore, arrangement of vouchers properly is the part of work of the organization. Arranged vouchers means by considering the nature of transaction, the vouchers are arranged accordingly. Another point, date of voucher. The date of voucher falls within the accounting period. It means that auditor should consider the accounting period and that vouchers should be of that period which mentioning date. The auditor should compare the date of voucher with the date recorded in the cash book. It means that the date of voucher and date of recorded in cash book should be same. Another point which is to be considered by the auditor while vouching, that is name of business. Every voucher should be addressed in the name of the business concern and not in the name of any individual or officer or director. It means that all vouchers should be addressed in the name of business. For example, suppose the voucher is of modern enterprises. So That name should be mentioned on the voucher. The auditor should not accept the vouchers in personal name because of personal transactions and business transactions are deeper. Therefore, the voucher should not be in the name of any officer, director, or individual, but it should be in the name of business. Checking of authority. The auditor should examine that all the vouchers are passed by the authorized officer. It means that sanction is required to every voucher by the responsible officer. Every voucher should have been signed by the authorized officer. If the voucher is passed by unauthorized person, it will not be corrected and that should not be accepted by the auditor. Minutes book. The auditor should examine the minutes book. The resolution and decision of directors and shareholders are recorded there. An auditor should refer the resolution as passed as meeting for certain transactions. It is noted that the transaction is supported by documentary evidence. Minute book that that is the that indicating the which resolution passed by the directors or shareholders or concerned department. So minute book is the proof that shows the transaction is approved. Therefore, the auditor should examine minute books in supporting to the transaction. Compare the words and figures. Each voucher should contain the amount of transaction. That amount is to be given in figure as well as in the words. It means that both figures are essential on voucher. That means word figures as well as digital figures. Transaction must relate to business. Every transaction must be related with the business. So that type of transactions are to be recorded. So therefore, it is the duty of an auditor to check carefully that the entries are made in the name of business and the transaction is related to the business. Non-business transactions are not to be accepted by the auditor. Checking of account head. Auditor must satisfied about the head of account on which cash is deposited or drawn. He should examine the documentary evidence in this regard. Two important heads of accounting are recurring and non-recurring. But another points are to be noted for designing and developing accounting head. By considering the nature of business, there are different type of account heads and the auditor should see that the entries are or transactions are recorded under a particular head as per the nature of the transaction. Revenue stamp. If the amount of voucher exceeds rupees 5,000, the voucher should bear the revenue stamp. It is the limit. It means that the transactions up to rupees 5,000 not required a revenue stamp. But if the voucher is of the business organization and if the transaction is more than rupees 5,000, that voucher should bear the revenue stamp. The auditor should check this point while vouching various vouchers. Printed vouchers. As far as possible, the vouchers should be in printed form. Printed vouchers are considered true and these are legally acceptable. Now most of businesses are following that practice. They are giving printed vouchers. We have discussed about the revenue stamp, and revenue stamp is required those transactions that are of the existing organization. Printed vouchers contain name of the business, nature of transactions, particulars of the transactions, and amounts. Nature of payment. The auditor should check that whether payment is described partially or for complete transaction of sale. Sale is the important aspect of the business organization. Sale generates revenue. Therefore, the auditor should check clearly and carefully the nature of payment, whether the payment is made by the concerned party fully or partially. Agreements. Every transaction requires minimum two persons or two parties. Some kind of transactions require agreements. These provide the basic information to the auditor. The auditor should check the agreements, correspondence, and other relevant papers supported to the transaction. Inspected vouchers. Here, one point is to be noted that there are two types of voucher: inspected vouchers and non-inspected vouchers. Inspected vouchers means that vouchers checked by the auditor. Non-inspected vouchers are the vouchers which are not checked by the auditor. Inspected vouchers should be marked with stamps or a special tick mark so that they should not be produced again and misused. From this, we can understand that those vouchers inspected should be kept aside. Cancelled vouchers. The auditor should not accept cancelled vouchers because they have already served the purpose of payment. There will be a danger of double payment if they are accepted. Cancelled vouchers should be separately considered, but they should not be accepted for avoiding fraud. Cutting or change. If there is any cutting or change on the receipts and vouching figures, it should be signed by the authorized officer. The auditor should satisfy himself by inquiring about it. Some vouchers may be cutting due to certain causes, but the auditor should note that point and check that that type of voucher is signed by the authorized officer. And if certain queries with auditor, he may ask to the client organization or their employees and get clarification about it. If the auditor should satisfied, then the transaction is to be considered, otherwise not. List of missing vouchers. We know very well that voucher is a documentary evidence and which is supporting to the transactions that have been taken place. If the vouchers are not available, the auditor should call for explanation and get the duplicate copies. But if duplicate copies are not found, then auditor should prepare the list of missing vouchers. The list will helpful in detecting the frauds and errors. The auditor should make an independent investigation about missing vouchers. It is the duty of an auditor to take into consideration various factors and causes as related to missing vouchers. By stating voucher has been missed, fraud may occur. Therefore, auditor should prepare the list of missing vouchers and get explanation and related supporting things from the client organization. List of rejected vouchers. A list of rejected vouchers should be made and it should be kept in a separate file. While vouching, the auditor should maintain a separate file for list of rejected vouchers. Auditor should be work carefully and cautiously because intelligent mistake that relate to fraud. Therefore, auditor should identify what are the rejected vouchers. Doubtful and spoiled vouchers. Certain vouchers may be doubtful and spoiled. Doubtful and torn or spoiled vouchers should be checked carefully. These are to be consulted with the responsible officer, and auditor should ask what what are the reasons due to certain vouchers are spoiled and he get proper information from the responsible officer. Prepayment. Certain prepayments can be done by the client organization. For that purpose, the auditor should check that suitable adjustment entries should be made in case a voucher relates to prepayment or expense or accrual of income. Here, two things are very important. The expenses is named as prepaid expenses and income is named as accrual of income. Another point of our discussion that should be taken into consideration by the auditor at the time of vouching. Pre-receipt. A pre-receipt invoice should not accepted as a voucher as it may be misused. Misusing is not allowed under any circumstances. Then another point of our discussion is PT expenses. In case of certain PT expenses or vouchers are not available, they should be checked with relevant documents. It means in vouching, the auditor should check all documentary evidences as related to the transactions. Complete session. Vouching should be complete at once in one session for a particular period of time. Another point, allocation of capital and revenue items. There are two types of expenditure, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Also, there are two types of income, revenue income and capital income. The auditor should ensure that proper allocation is made between capital and revenue items of income and expenditure. Income may be capital nature or income may be revenue nature. Expenditure may be revenue nature or expenditure may be capital nature. So this classification is to be done by the client organization properly. That should be checked by an auditor. Financial books. The auditor should see that the vouchers are properly entered in the proper financial books. Financial books are maintained for recording financial transactions. Mostly we are focusing on financial transaction because there are chances of making mistakes or errors intentionally or making fraud. Notebook, that is very important point. In case of explanation or clarification is to be called for in respect of any voucher, the same should be noted in the auditor's notebook. It means that while vouching, the auditor should maintain his own notebook for recording certain things that he wanted to record. Auditor's report. If the auditor is not satisfied with the explanation obtained for missing vouchers, he should state the same in his report. The auditor has required to prepare his report called as auditor's report, and in his report the auditor should state that about the missing vouchers or missing transactions that he has been identified. Therefore, in the present lecture, we discussed what are the points should be noted by the auditor at the time of vouching. Vouching is the essence of auditing. With the help of vouching, the work of an auditor is start. Therefore, vouching is the major component of audit work, and the auditor should take proper precaution and certain factors while doing the work of vouching. In this way, I am concluding here my speech. Thank you, one and all.